People like you with just a high school diploma are less likely to get their proposals through than college graduates like me. If you get it, then stay out of this project from now on. I was taken aback when my boss, a college graduate named Madison, claimed my proposal, which I had submitted after joining the company, as someone with only a high school diploma. Anyway, I will be in charge of this project. It has been decided. There's nothing I can do when it's been decided. I suppose a college graduate boss will surely manage somehow. Believing she also spoke German, I decided to support her. My name is Jack, a guy who joined a confectionery manufacturer straight out of high school and is working hard every day as a rookie in sales. Good morning. Morning, Jack. You're always so energetic. Jack, you are always early. Huh? It's only 8 o'clock. No way. It's only natural for me to come in before my seniors. I live by the principle of starting the morning with a cheerful greeting. And as always, I greeted my colleagues with a lot of energy upon arriving at the office today. I've always been involved in sports, which has instilled in me a strong sense of hierarchy typical of athletic teams. I feel it's my duty to prepare things before my seniors arrive. So, even after I became a member of society, I thought it was only natural for me, the most junior member of the sales team, to be the first to arrive, unlock the office door, and turn on the computers for my seniors. The older folks often tell me, "You don't have to do that, you know," but it's like a habit that's become second nature to me. Perhaps because of this, my colleagues treat me well, and I've gradually started to see the results of my work. So right now, I'm really enjoying every day. Good morning, everyone. Jack, could you keep it down a bit? You're always so loud. I've told you this how many times? Sorry, Madison. I've always greeted people at this volume. It's a habit from way back, right? I suppose that's about all the brains someone with just a high school education has. With a heavy sigh, Madison settled into her seat. It seems she's in a foul mood this morning too. Ever since I joined the sales department, it's been like this just with me. Madison is an extremely capable person, the first woman to become a chief in our sales department. A graduate from a prestigious national university, she's tough on herself and others, but she handles everything with precision, and everyone expects she'll be the next department head. Of course, I think so too. After the morning meeting wrapped up, I was being schooled by my mentor, Bob, on various tasks. As the rookie I am, there's a limited number of things I can do, so I'm all about answering phones, giving cheerful greetings and responses. I'm determined to give it my all in what I can do while working every day. Then, just before the end of the shift at 5 p.m., Madison called out to me. Jack, could you make 50 copies of this printout, staple them in sets of 10 to make the materials? Here's the sample. They're for the meeting tomorrow morning, so make sure you finish them today. Even a high school grad like you can handle this, right? Madison handed me the printouts, and I responded with a loud yes, I'll do my best, before dashing off to the copier. All right, take care. You too. While I was copying, Madison had left for the day. She's probably leaving early to prepare for tomorrow's meeting. I've heard that if management doesn't leave, it's tough for the rest to follow suit. As I pondered this, I finally finished copying. Then, I returned to my desk and dumped the huge pile of papers in front of me. Looking at this pile all over again, it's quite the load. Can I get through all of it? No, I've decided I will finish it today. With that determination in my heart, I grabbed the stapler and started putting together the materials. Almost immediately after I began, I heard, Jack, that's rough, I'll give you a hand. Me too, said Bob and Ken, offering to help. What? But you guys, it's already time to leave. I was thinking of heading out, but how can I leave when my adorable junior is working hard? No way I can go first. Yeah, and with all of us on it, we'll be done in no time. Bob and Ken, each with a stapler in hand, told me this. Are these guys angels or what? Moved by their kindness, I handed them some of the materials. The sound of staplers echoed through the sales department. But Jack, you've caught Madison's eye, having to put up with this kind of harassment, Bob said. Wait, is this harassment? I asked, surprised. Come on, what else would you call it? The seniors chimed in together. Oh, a double punchline. Having to make copies and assemble materials minutes before finish time, while she heads out on time. You really didn't notice. I thought it was Madison's way of showing tough love. Bob just looked at me and said, seriously. Ken looked at me with eyes that couldn't believe what they were seeing, and said, man, where do you feel the love in this? Even I can feel a shred of affection here. Seems like Madison basically has it out for Jack. Huh? Maybe that's because I'm not that good at my job. Well, it's only natural since you're still the newbie. Though, I guess it also has to do with the fact that you and she are just complete opposites. I definitely think that Madison and I are completely different. From the standpoint of Madison, who's calm and good at her job, I must seem like a noisy guy who can't cut it. Starting tomorrow, I'm going to try to keep my voice down. Then one day, during lunch break, my personal cell phone rang. The call was from a friend, and because it had been a few years since we last talked, we really enjoyed catching up. It turns out this friend took over his dad's business a while back, and now he's planning a big project there. He asked if I could lend a hand with it. Hey, Bob, got a sec for some advice? Sure, what's up, Jack? I told my mentor, Bob, about the call and asked what he thought about the project as a business idea. That sounds good, but man, you've got some impressive connections to know someone like that. Nah, just an old acquaintance, really. Bob suggested, why don't you run it by Madison? So, I brought up the project idea to her. What do you think about this project? Well, we haven't had any new initiatives lately, so it might be good. This could be the perfect chance to learn how to draft a proposal from Bob. Once you've got it, show me what you come up with, she said. So, I tried to draft a proposal while Bob taught. Thanks to Bob's help, I finally finished the proposal and handed it over to Madison. After reading it, she said, I'll take charge of this project. Huh? People are more likely to take a project seriously if it's headed by a college grad like me rather than a high school grad like you. Understand? So, stay out of this from now on. But that's what? You think you can do this job better than I can? Madison glared at me, and I blurted out without thinking, no, of course not. Anyway, I'm taking over this project. That's final. With that, Madison stood up, took the proposal, and left. If it's a done deal, there's not much I can do. I'll just have to leave it in her hands. With that thought, I decided to step back from the project. A few days later, it was announced that this initiative would become a major company-wide project and a project team was assembled. As expected, my name was not among the diverse group of team members gathered from various departments. Looking at the bulletin board with the names of the project members, I'll be honest, I felt a bit down. Of course, the project leader was none other than Madison. Jack, that's a bummer. Who would have guessed Madison would just snatch a project like that? Bob, standing next to me looking at the notice, seemed down for some reason too. By the way, Bob wasn't on the team either. That must have been the reason for his disappointment. It's not your fault, Bob. Let's keep our spirits up. Oh, yeah, well, with Madison in charge, I'm sure it'll be a success. Let's just focus on our other work and do our best. Right. Yeah, Madison is different from me, a college graduate. Maybe she can handle this too and everything will be just fine. The whole company was gearing up for this project, and I spent my days working while watching over it. Just yesterday, I passed by the busy Madison in the hallway and greeted her with, hard work as usual. Then she said, Jack, I'm sorry it seems like I took your project, but you know, it probably was better for a college grad like me to propose it, right? I replied honestly with, indeed. As expected, and she had a rather ambiguous expression on her face. I couldn't understand what that expression meant, but I admired the hard work she's putting in. "Man, it's tough every single day," says Leah, who started at the company the same time I did. Leah is so talented that she was picked for the project team, and there's talk she'll be the first among our peers to make it big. Even someone as capable as her seems swamped with this project. I heard as much when we chatted in the break room. It really does sound like it's a grind every day. I have a meeting with folks from another company tomorrow, and I have to start preparing for it now. If there's anything I can help with, just let me know, anytime. Thanks a bunch, Jack. But you know, since it's pretty well known that Madison has it out for you, I'd probably get an earful if I relied on you, so I'll just take the thought, okay. Leah said this with a laugh. Then, the next day, I was in the sales department organizing some documents. Suddenly, I heard the sound of hurried footsteps, and the next moment, the door to the sales department was flung open with incredible force. "Jack," I heard my name called. It was Leah. "Jack, come to the conference room, right now." While saying that, Leah came closer to me. "Hey, Leah, what's going on?" "No time to explain. Just hurry up." I was practically dragged by the arm by Leah, rushing out of the sales department and into a conference room. When we got to the conference room, there was Madison, as pale as a ghost. And for some reason, she was sitting under the desk. "Madison, are you all right? Are you feeling sick or something? It's all your fault." "Huh? But never mind that, Jack. You can speak German, right? Please, take over from Madison." That's when I remembered that there was supposed to be a meeting today. "Wait, you mean Madison can't speak German?" "Of course, most people can't. Just hurry." I thought since she had a college degree, she'd be able to. Just because I have a degree doesn't mean I can speak it, do I? Oh, I was yelled at by Leah and it hit me. Come to think of it, Leah had said she couldn't speak German either. That's just the way it was. In front of the chair where Madison had probably been sitting was a laptop, closed shut. When I opened the laptop, there was a man filling the screen. It was Franz, an old acquaintance of mine from Germany. "Franz, you're really attending this meeting today?" "Ah, Jack, how have you been?" "Great, you too. Oh, you're working hard as the boss, I see." "You bet, I'm the president now. Plus, this whole job was my idea." Watching me and Franz converse in German, Madison's eyes were wide with surprise. Franz's company is a well-known confectionery manufacturer in Germany, and he had recently taken over as president from his father. Since I happen to work for a confectionery manufacturer in the US, in the same line of business, Franz proposed we collaborate on a confectionery project between Germany and the US, which led to the current plan. Franz's company is large with branches all over the world. They have a branch in the US too, and all the meetings so far had been with someone from the American branch. Today's meeting wrapped up smoothly, and just as we were about to call it a day, branch office staff said, "Our company president would like to say a few words today, so I'm going to connect him remotely now." "Your company's president?" "Yes, he hasn't had the chance to greet the project leader yet. As you may know, our president is German and speaks only German. But Madison, you can speak German, right?" While preparing the connection, the branch representative continued, and Madison's face grew increasingly pale. I actually can't speak any German," Madison admitted honestly, but the representative seemed confused. "Really?" But the president said, "The project leader has a college degree, so they must surely speak German." It was me who told Franz that. Unfortunately, the person from the American branch who could speak German had to step out suddenly due to an urgent phone call, leaving right as the remote connection was made. With no German skills, Madison found herself trapped and impulsively shut the laptop, crouching down on the spot. That's when Leah remembered that I could speak German and came to fetch me from the sales department. That's how we got here. So, Is it alright if I handle the new contract when I visit the US? I'd really like to go to the US again after so long. Hold on a sec. Madison, Franz is asking if it's okay to finalize the contract when he visits the US. I relayed what I heard from Franz to Madison. Yes, that's fine. She says it's fine. Let us know when you plan to come to the US again. Will do. And Franz, I'm sorry for the mix-up, but our project leader doesn't speak any German at all. Oh, is that so? So when you come to views, I'll act as the interpreter. That means I'll get to meet Jack too. Looking forward to it. With that, the remote session ended, and I closed the laptop again. Jack, you really are fluent in German. It was Leah who said this. Yeah, well, glad I could help. You really saved us. Thanks a bunch. Madison, that's great news for you. Looking over at Madison, she was trembling all over. Is she angry? Jack, are you implying I should speak German just because I have a college degree? Is that some kind of dig? What? No, I didn't mean. And why on earth can you speak German so well when you only have a high school diploma? As Madison fumed red-faced, I decided it was time to explain why I could speak German. Actually, I'm really into soccer, and I've been part of a club team. When I was 15, I even went to Germany for 3 years to play soccer. Huh? Madison, with a surprised look, just stood there with her mouth agape. You might not know this, Madison, but back then, Jack was quite a famous soccer player, almost like a prodigy. Leah added for me. Learning German was quite a challenge, but after spending 3 years there, I managed to pick up the language. I was actually set to join a professional German soccer team, but unfortunately, I injured my knee and had to give up on my soccer career. At that time, I was filled with nothing but despair, but I had to accept it as fate. In the end, I came back from Germany to the US, re-entered high school, graduated, and when I thought about what I loved next, I realized I enjoyed sweets both in the US and Germany, and that's why I joined this company. By the way, Franz was a teammate from the same club team in Germany. He used to play soccer professionally in Germany, but retired a few years back and is now a company president. If you're such an amazing soccer player and speak German, you should brag about it more. Well, it's not like I was hiding it, but unless you're into soccer, you wouldn't know, and I didn't feel the need to bring it up unless asked, I said with a laugh. Jack, I'm so sorry for before. Suddenly, Madison apologized. What? Why are you apologizing to me, Madison? I used to look down on you, thinking you were just a noisy high school grad. To be honest, I was just jealous of you. Jealous? You were jealous of me. I've always been bad at socializing and expressing my feelings. Jack, you are so genuine with your emotions and good at making friends. You were adored by everyone right from the start, and I was honestly envious. That's why I disliked you and said those sarcastic remarks and treated you the way I did. Madison, but I'm going to change my ways. You've really helped us out this time. Thank you so much. That was the moment when Madison showed me a smile for the first time. Ever since that day, Madison has changed her tune and started being kind to me. When I greet her, she says good morning back, and she's been showing me the ropes at work. She even said, "You've got to brag more about speaking German," and she stopped giving me grief for only having a high school diploma. Bob and the others joked, Madison must have eaten something strange. A few weeks later, we went to the airport to welcome Franz, who had come to the US. Franz over here. Jack. Franz was waving his arms wildly, rolling a big suitcase towards us. Franz, let me introduce you. This is my co-worker Leah, and my boss, Madison. We were there to pick up Franz also because of a contract for a new project, so I had Madison and Leah come along for the ride. Pleased to meet you, I'm Madison. Sorry for any rudeness over our remote meeting the other day. I'm Leah. After the two exchanged greetings, I translated for Franz in German, and his demeanor suddenly changed. Jack, what's up? I'm smitten with this Madison. I want to take her back to Germany and marry her. Wait, you're moving too fast. Since when were you such a ladies' man? I'm not a ladies' man. I'm serious. Translate for me, quick. So, I told Madison that Franz said he's fallen for her at first sight and wants to take her back to Germany. What? Franz walked up next to a wide-eyed and astonished Madison. Madison, I'm crazy about you. Let's get married, he said in his broken, alien-like confession and proposal. Beside me and Leah, a great deal of laughter escaped us. However, Madison, faced with such a sudden statement, was not going to accept it, saying, "No, I can't deal with this out of the blue," and so Franz was turned down by her. Franz looked visibly downcast, but he declared, "I won't give up, no matter what." He quickly signed the contract documents we had for him, and he planned to spend the next 2 weeks or so touring the US. That's why I thought his suitcase was unusually big. The sudden confession from Franz and Madison didn't seem totally opposed. Leah confided to me secretly, so Leah and I decided to help deepen their relationship a bit while Franz was in the US, concocting various strategies. From that day on, Franz began his relentless pursuit of Madison, and we supported him while trying to leave them alone together, but 2 weeks wasn't enough for things to go smoothly. Before we knew it, the days had flown by, and it was about time for Franz to return to Germany. "Franz, when are you going back to Germany?" "I'm not going back." "What?" "I won't return to Germany until I take Madison with me. I can work remotely, and as a CEO, it's okay," Franz said with a thumbs up and a good smile. This guy, he's serious. Is this what the power of love can do to a person? "So, Jack, can I still count on your help?" "Sure thing. I'll stick with you through thick and thin." I made up my mind, told Leah, and decided to continue supporting Franz's vigorous pursuit of Madison. Every day, being whispered words of love and subjected to relentless pursuit, Madison apparently told Leah, "I never thought someone would fall for someone like me." Then, a month later, Madison finally gave in, and they got engaged. After the engagement with Franz, Madison went off to Germany to live. Consequently, she ended up resigning from our company. Who would have thought Madison would leave for marriage? All the employees were shocked, and it seemed Madison herself was surprised too. The next chief was decided to be Bob, but when Madison came to say her goodbyes, she told me, "Keep doing your best as you always have, and I believe you'll become a chief and eventually even a department head. Your positivity is your asset." Meanwhile, as we were devising strategies to bring Franz and Madison closer, I found myself working closely with Leah, and naturally, we became close. As things progressed, I started dating Leah, and I was feeling the joy of having a girlfriend. Everyone has their own unique strengths, and how you leverage them can change your life. I have the strength of always being positive and trying hard, and I believe that if I keep at it, people will recognize it someday. I swore to myself to keep working hard at my job, using my positivity as my weapon, just as Madison advised. See you later. Take care. Have a good day. Don't worry, I'll be back around 7 p.m. As I opened the front door, the dazzling morning sun greeted me. Turning around, my wife, dressed in an apron, was waving goodbye with a smile. It was the very image of the married life I had always dreamed of. I was so happy to see that dream come true. My name is Tyler. Things at work were going great. At 29, I was starting to get recognized and earn a decent position. Although the responsibility is heavier, it is more rewarding, and most importantly, the salary has increased. I'm saving this money for my wife, and for our future child. With that in mind, I've been giving my all at work. But the problem arose less than a year after we got married. We had been trying, but we couldn't seem to have a child. Maybe we should get checked at the hospital, just to be sure. One day, I suggested this to my wife. But she said, "There's no need to rush, is there? Let's just be patient." She said that, gently refusing to go to the hospital. At the time, I only thought there might be a slight misalignment between us regarding children, but one comment from a mutual friend changed everything. It was when I was on the phone with that friend, talking about going fishing, which is a hobby of ours. "Hey, by the way, did you guys have a kid?" he asked cheerily, but I was stunned. "A kid? No, we haven't. Really? Because, I had a cold recently, right? When I was at the clinic, I saw your wife coming out of the obstetrics and gynecology department." According to my friend, it was a momentary event, and he didn't have time to say hello. My wife, who didn't want to go to the hospital, was secretly at the OBGYN. Why would she be there? I had a bad feeling. At least, I couldn't understand why she would go there without telling me. So after dinner, I told my wife we needed to talk and had her sit down. When I brought up what the friend had mentioned, I didn't miss the brief moment of panic in her reaction. "You must be mistaken. I haven't been to such a place." My wife looked me straight in the eye and said that. I left it at that for the moment, but remembering a line from a TV show, that a woman doesn't look away when she lies, only deepened my distrust. So, I decided to hire a detective. What came back was astonishing. The detective's report on my wife's whereabouts revealed that she kept changing hospitals and was still visiting the OBGYN. I asked the detective to check her financial activity, and we took a look at her bank account. There were large sums of money recently withdrawn. When I reported this to the detective, he looked grim. If that large sum of money was used at the gynecologist's, there's probably only one thing it could have been for. And what's that? An abortion. Hearing those words, I went completely blank. Why? How could this happen? I mumbled, but the detective mentioned something troubling. "Actually, it appears there's another man in the picture with your wife." I felt as if I had been hit over the head with a blunt object. "Haha, you're joking, right?" I burst out laughing dryly, but when the detective showed me a picture of my wife with a strange man, I couldn't laugh any longer. I had been betrayed by my wife. Then, I confronted her with both the photos of her entering the OBGYN and her meeting the man in secret. At first, she tried to explain it away as a misunderstanding, but ultimately, she admitted to the affair. "I'm truly disappointed. Why did you do this?" Past anger, I struggled to hold back tears as I squeezed out the words. Then, through her sobbing, she said, "Forgive me, it was a moment of weakness. You've been so busy lately." And then I was approached by a senior from my college days, but the child I aborted was his. I didn't want to have a child with anyone but you, so that's why. Come to think of it, there had been several large withdrawals from my wife's bank account. When I pressed for details, it turned out that she had secretly conducted a DNA test when she found out she was pregnant. That must have been what the money was for. In her mind, she must have thought that all the effort she put in was to prove her love for me, but when I heard that, anger surged within me again. Don't be ridiculous. How selfish can you be? You had an abortion because it was your lover's child. If you were going to do something like that, you shouldn't have cheated in the first place. What you've done is nothing less than murder, I shouted. I just went off screaming. It was the only way I could keep from hitting her. She kept apologizing, but sorry wasn't going to cut it anymore. Then I told her it was over. When I told my in-laws, they actually got down on their knees and apologized. They had contributed to our wedding and had been really good to us until now, so it was sad to say goodbye this way. Despite everything, I ended up demanding a hefty alimony from my wife's lover. I even informed his company about the affair, and later heard he got fired. And seems to be drowning in debt now. Serves him right, I thought, feeling a bit hollow, but the damage I suffered from this ordeal was beyond imagination. All I was left with was a bit of a bonus in the form of alimony. The happy everyday life with the wife and kids I loved was now a dream that would never come true again. After that, I just couldn't put my heart into my work anymore. I had managed because I had a family. I just couldn't keep the motivation going. My colleagues were somewhat understanding of my downheartedness due to my wife's infidelity, but it was clear they were troubled by my listless performance. Sensing this, I submitted my resignation. "Are you sure? After all you've worked for?" my boss said, but I told him I didn't want to be a burden anymore and that I wanted to start fresh somewhere new. In the end, he accepted my resignation. "You'll make it anywhere. Keep your chin up," he said. My boss gave me a shout out. Honestly, I was close to tears. Having almost lost faith in people because of my wife's betrayal, his words made me feel like I could try again. Then, at 30, I switched jobs. Sure, the salary took a significant hit, and my seniors are all younger than me, but everyone was so kind that I slowly felt my smile return after feeling emotionless since the affair. Still, whenever female colleagues spoke to me, I couldn't help but wonder if they were lying, which became a bit of a worry for me. But even I found a new beginning. It was with Susan, the office clerk. She was 5 years older than me. Always smiling and incredibly smart, she was the go-to person for everyone. We started off just exchanging greetings, but one day, our overtime hours overlapped. That's when we began to chat more personally and discovered a shared passion for fishing, which brought us closer. But what really connected us was finding out that Susan, like me, was also divorced. "So, Susan, you were married too?" "Yes, it's been a year already." Coincidentally, the timing of her divorce was close to when my ex-wife and I split up. It was really the worst. I lost the kids to my ex-husband. He must have hired a good lawyer. Even though infidelity was the cause, Susan's expression was very regretful. "I get to see my kids once a month, but ever since then, I've felt all alone. Lost my husband and my children. Lost everything important all at once." "I get that. I understand how you feel. I had dreams too, you know. I wanted to have a kid to play catch with. I was in the baseball club in high school. Not a strong team, but I was a regular. If my kid took an interest in baseball, I'd love to pass on the skills I learned. I've had that fantasy." "Your ex-wife was quite something. You've done well to bounce back. That's impressive." Susan gently patted my head as she said that. I was so surprised that my face felt like it was on fire. Maybe this is the confidence of someone older. Simple as it may seem, that moment sparked my interest in Susan. Even I, who had become distrustful of women, could believe the words of Susan, who shared a similar fate. So one day, I took a chance and confessed my feelings to her. And Susan, who said she could forget her loneliness when she was with me, accepted my feelings. We started dating, and before long, we were married. We'd definitely be happy. We promised each other that this time. But life, it just doesn't always work out the way you plan. It's been 3 years since I divorced my first wife. And it's almost a year since Susan and I got married. Lately, though, things between Susan and me haven't been so great. I got transferred to a new division and had to travel a lot for work, which seems to be bothering Susan. "You're not cheating, are you?" She kept asking me that, over and over. I guess the trauma from her previous husband has left her feeling insecure. But no matter how many times I've reassured her, she speaks as if it's a given that I would cheat, which has started to really irritate me. "Why don't you trust me?" I snapped. Because men cheat, don't they? What's that supposed to mean? If anything, it's women who are the cheaters. That made Susan burst into tears. Constantly checking and doubting each other. Our daily life had become anything but happy. Despite both of us having pasts where we've been betrayed and hurt, it's those very pasts that are now causing us to hurt each other. Caught in this negative spiral, both Susan and I were worn out. And with my long business trips piling up, we started talking less and less. Then, I was assigned another trip. "Well, I'll be gone for about a week. Take care of the house, will you?" "Yeah, safe trip." Susan's face looked incredibly sad. Every time I'm away on a business trip, she must suspect I'm cheating on her. It's utterly baseless. If anything, it's Susan who might be having another man over at our house. I have that suspicion too. We were both exhausted. If we're just going to doubt each other, maybe it'd be better if we split up. While harboring such thoughts, I was working at my temporary assignment. A few days later, I had finished my day's work and was about to head to the hotel. Then, on my way, I found a park. A wave of nostalgia hit me. This was actually the place where I used to live with my ex-wife, and where we often came during our dates, holding hands. I used to ask her there, "Shall we play catch here with our kid?" She'd laugh and say it was too cramped for anything but a wiffle ball. I felt a lump in my throat. Despite being from an affair, there was no doubt a child in my wife's womb. That child had every right to live in this world. And yet, we took it away for adult reasons. Had it been born to different parents, its future could have been different. No, if I had known about it before my wife decided on the abortion, I could have stopped it, raised that child myself. Maybe then, I could have played catch with them, being called dad by them. I chuckled bitterly at the fantasy. There's no way I could be kind to a child from an affair. I already feel so torn up just knowing Susan meets with her ex's child. A mix of frustration and sorrow overwhelmed me at that moment. "Daddy," I heard a child's voice. It surely wasn't meant for me. But I turned around anyway. For some reason, I thought the voice was calling out to me. And there they were, a child and his mother. The kid I recognized from a photo. I believe his name was George. And the mother, of course, I knew. She was my wife, Susan. "Susan, what are you doing here?" I asked, and Susan looked just as surprised. "I thought we might bump into each other," Susan murmured, with a meaningful look. As it turned out, it was just a coincidence that today was the once-a-month day Susan and her child, George, were to meet. They had been to the aquarium, and on their way back, George wanted to play catch, so they stopped by this nearby park. "That's so, but there's something else I'm curious about." I dropped my gaze. There was George, sticking close to me even though we had never met. He must have turned 5 this year. I've seen his photo with Susan, but for some reason, George looked up at me and seemed happy, calling me daddy. When I asked why, Susan just gave a wry smile in response. Actually, I've explained to George that I have a new husband now, and when I mentioned that he used to play baseball, George said he wanted to play catch with his new dad. Since he had seen your photo before, when we came to the park and he spotted you, he ran straight over. "Is that so? Do you like baseball, George?" When I asked, George nodded happily and said, "Yeah." Then he immediately wanted to play catch and showed me a wiffle ball. I was bewildered by the sudden turn of events, but seeing George's smile made me too tired to think it over. "All right, shall we play?" "Yay, awesome. Kids really don't consider the convenience of adults, do they?" But that's okay. I thought to myself as I played catch with him. After a while, as George started to play on the playground equipment, I walked shoulder to shoulder with Susan. Susan said that young George might not fully grasp what a father is yet. That is, there's only one mom, but there could be more than one dad, and right now, for some reason, Mom is living away from him with another dad. That's probably why George so naturally called me daddy, Susan analyzed. It's all my and my ex's fault that he thinks this way. Someday, George will realize how odd his parents are. What am I going to say to apologize to him then? Susan said this, her shoulders drooping. She said she never forgot about George for a moment, and she must have been worrying about her son more than anyone else. Thinking this, I realized her troubles were undoubtedly much greater than mine. I wondered if I had really been able to support her properly. Sorry for meeting with my ex's child. You weren't too happy about that, were you? I was taken aback by Susan's words. I didn't feel that way. I was about to respond, but the words didn't come out. Frankly, I have decided to stay out of George's life. I was somewhat jealous of the child that belonged to Susan and her ex-husband. That feeling must have inadvertently been communicated to her. I now regretted not having fully supported her in that regard. I'm sorry. Maybe I've been pushing you into a corner without realizing it. I'm truly sorry. I couldn't help but let the tears overflow. Then, Susan also began to cry, apologizing for having taken out all her pent-up anxiety on me. Seeing two adults crying side by side in the park, maybe in empathy, George dashed from the top of the slide and clung to Susan, crying even harder than us. Seeing George's reaction, we couldn't help but chuckle. No fighting. As George cried, I patted his head. It's okay. Thanks to you, we've made up now. While laughing, I said thank you. Since meeting George, both my wife and I felt as if a fog had lifted. From then on, I started accompanying Susan to the monthly visits with George. Playing catch with the kid. It was the moment my dream was fulfilled through George. I, who had not thought so highly of George at first, felt truly cleansed at heart when meeting him. Gradually, seeing George became the highlight of my life. I even started to wish that George would really become my son. One day, Susan confided in me. Actually, George mentioned something the other day. His father doesn't seem to come home much anymore. Really? Is that true? When I brought it up with his father, he just insisted that's not true. But considering he always prioritized his work and hobbies over family, it seems suspicious. Susan looked anxiously in George's direction. He seems a bit too skinny. I was worried about whether he was eating properly too. All right, then I've got a good idea. I made a suggestion. That was to hire a private investigator. Yes, the same detective agency I had used before to corner my ex-wife. I asked them for another investigation. We'll take this case for a lower fee this time, the detective said, and then they started tailing Susan's ex-husband. It turned out the ex-husband had a girlfriend he seemed to be seeing, spending every night with her in a hotel. He would come home late at night, and sometimes not until the morning. He left his son, who wasn't even in elementary school, home alone to fend for himself while going out. When Susan learned this fact, she was shaking with anger. He is a man who only thinks of himself. He took away my son's custody because he didn't want to be seen as the ex-husband who took my child away from me. I really can't forgive him. I then made a suggestion to Susan. I talked to the detective, and with this much evidence, we can definitely get the custody back. Really? Go to court? Yes. And then, I want to become George's father. Susan was very surprised by my words. Are you sure that's what you want? Susan asked me. I had no doubts myself. I wanted to live with George. George and Susan. The time the three of us have spent together has become something I can't replace. Can I stand by and protect you both from here on out? To hear you say that, it really means the world to me. She said that with tears streaming down her face. Then, through a detective's connection, I got a lawyer and filed a custody battle against Susan's ex-husband. We went through all sorts of procedures, and the court deemed what Susan's ex did to be child abuse, and luckily, we were granted custody. I thought Susan's ex would put up a huge fight, but he was surprisingly subdued during the trial. It turned out that the woman Susan's ex had been secretly meeting was the wife of a senior executive at a client company. In other words, he was having an affair. So for the ex-husband, it was more problematic for that to come to light than the custody terms, so he agreed to the custody terms on the condition that the affair stayed under wraps. As a victim of his cheating, I was filled with righteous anger and wanted to tell him off, but I held back, thinking of getting George back. But later on, it seems the affair did come out. I heard through the grapevine that the ex lost his job and has been paying a hefty sum in alimony. It seems hiding infidelity is next to impossible. This incident made me sure of that. And so, Susan and we began living peacefully with George. George adapted to the new life quicker than I thought, which was a relief. Having a child changes a couple's life completely. We'll raise George properly. Susan and through this common goal, have become even more cooperative with each other. Both Susan and I have become able to trust people again, thanks undoubtedly to George. What happened to the dad who used to live with me? Sometimes he asks with such innocent eyes that I'm always at a loss for words. Susan and I have talked it over, and we've decided to wait a little longer before explaining his situation to him. I feel guilty for unwittingly pushing George into a complex family environment, but one day, when he's grown up, I hope he can say that being raised in this home was truly the best for him. We are committed to protecting our son with all our might.